Welcome to Science Fiction through Wally. The film essentially is about this robot who is the last of his kind, kind of a trash compacting robot, whose sole mission is to clean up the Earth so that human life can then return and live once again on the planet after being disbanded from the Earth so many years ago. It was released the 21st of June in 2008 and had a budget of $180 million. The film was directed by Andrew Stanton, and the original story was actually written by Andrew Stanton and Pete Docter, who also is a huge name at Pixar. Now, in terms of science fiction genre semantics, the film is grounded in science and technology, ideally through the main characters. The main characters are robotic, they're computerized, they're essentially programmed to do this job. Yes, they are kind of glitchy robots that kind of have their own AI technology within that kind of drives the plot and the characters through the film. But essentially, each character's grounded in a robotic science technology base. Technology drives the film, kind of gives a balance between the work-life balance and the life balance of, how much technology is good for you, how much technology should you allow into your life, and can we find a good balance through there. The film also attributes a lot of science fiction films, one of the most obvious ones being 2001 A Space Odyssey. Artificial intelligence is also pretty heavily grounded in this film. Wally himself, this is the main character here you see on this slide, is artificially intelligent and continues to grow in terms of his knowledge of the world through the things he finds as a trash collector. Wally observes the things around his surroundings and collects them instead of throwing them away. Eve herself is grounded in artificial intelligence as well. She has to make decisions that are best suited for either Wally itself or the people on the ship. And also the film takes place in the future, as many sci-fi genres film do take place. A lot of sci-fi films are futuristic because it's an expanded imagination of what could be when we push technology even further than it is now at this current time. There were so many interesting things that I came across while researching the film in terms of metaphors and allegories and ideologies. Of course, one being man versus machine, which I think is the most evident, and through our lectures here at ASU, I believe was a major aspect of science fiction. Man versus something, man versus alien, man versus this, man versus that. So man versus machine, essentially. And it balances well as terms of how it negotiates what man is going up against. Because it doesn't say that all machines are bad. It's just trying to encourage a balance. Another metaphor that I found interesting was an Adam and Eve. Metaphor, which was very interesting. And we'll touch on that a little bit on a different slide. But essentially having Eve be the mother and the female person that gives life. I say person and use that term loosely, but that gives life and rebirth to the world, just as the biblical Eve did. Some have even noted that the ship in the film is kind of a reference to Noah's Ark, as all the people on there are saved and are protected from the elements, and it is a holy place and a safe place. And also the metaphor of environmentalism. How much we consume and how much we throw away, and being self-conscious about that and just being aware of what we use and how we use it. Allegories also include, kind of on that same note, it's like saving the planet. In terms of allegories, I believe through my research I found it to be along the lines of save the planet. What we're seeing depicted in the first half of the film is almost a warning of we consume too much and don't take care and don't recycle, and let plants kind of go off to the wayside and don't take care of life and the people next to us. Again, kind of on that same note as before, the new plant life being represented as a child and being represented as life itself, and not just as a plant, but a bigger symbol as a whole. We touched on Adam and Eve, how Eve herself, itself, whatever you want to say, is also based on the biblical character or female who is the giver of life of essentially the whole world through the Bible. Eve carries life, even in her belly, carries life, and kind of symbolizes an even more motherly love and a motherly birth of this new world to come. And also the reliance on technology. How much should we rely on technology? How much can we rely on technology? Should we impose a limit? Ideologies, I believe it all kind of mixes in together, but I saw it as a warning about consumption. By and large is the major conglomerate that kind of takes over. It's like the Amazon in that world, in the Pixar world. Having too much consumption and not being aware of how much we're consuming and what happens to our trash, and environmentalism again, trash overload, so much so that all the other robots who are meant to clean up the earth while humans are away have broken down because there's just so much trash that they just could not handle it. I talked about Eve kind of being the woman and the female, the motherly symbol. Wally would then kind of take on that male role, that father role, since he is the one who kind of finds the seed, the plant gives it life, and introduces it to Eve, as you can see in that top right photo, quite literally placing it in her womb. So Wally representing that male father figure, kind of that Adam biblical figure, being that first male on earth. And Eve, again, being the female, the motherly instinct person, even through even through her mannerisms throughout the film, she becomes very motherly and caring towards Wally. She holds the seed in her womb, in her belly, and gives life again to Earth, and gives life new meaning and repopulates the Earth through that one seed and that plant, giving hope to a whole new world. Representations of sexuality. This can be seen through intimacy throughout the film. As early as the first few minutes, you see Wally kind of creating this connection, this romantic connection towards Eve. He or it wants to hold Eve's hand and just wants to be with her and wants to show her things and is goofy around her, and just even though Wally is a robot and is programmed or has artificial intelligence, you still see the inklings of what emotions a person would have if they were to have a crush on somebody. The two embrace and hugs and even kiss and create literal sparks through their touch and their tension, the romantic tension. You see them romantically dancing through the sky and space, and quite romantically having that moment of intimacy, again holding hands and just having emotional responses throughout the film. You can see through the LED lights in Eve's eyes when she's surprised, when she's scared, when in this scene towards the end, and framed in this slide, how she's embracing Wally because of those emotions and because of that intimacy that they've shared before. On the world of the robotics in this film, on the ship specifically, there's a class structure between the robots. You can see it perfectly in this frame, which I'm so glad I found this while I was watching the movie, as I screenshotted this. Um, all the robots on the right side are so white and clean and just pristine and just appear to be at a higher class, as opposed to all the robots on the left who are just all sorts of colors, are all messy. Wally himself is the dirtiest of them all, representing that lower class structure, the lowest of the low. And even Wally is seen as an outsider specifically because he's from Earth. Earth kind of being distinguished as below space, right? Below. Space is always seen as above Earth, even though it's spherical and just in reference point, what is up or down. But that's just the representation. Wally's seen as an outsider. He's seen as dirty. Even the colored robots in the film, right before this scene, as they're all jailed, because they're not perfect. They're like their white counterparts. They're glitched. They're kooky. Their AI is just a little off, and that's seen as below or less than. Since the main characters in this film are robotic, the humans are almost seen as alien and perceived as normal because we are ourselves humans, so we see that as normal. But in terms of this film and the way the film structure works, the humans are also perceived as outsiders, to the robotic world. Even Wally might have never seen a robot before, as seen throughout the film. You can see the class shift between the higher end robots that we're seen on that right side, and even in the main villain here, seen above the captain. He is above the captain and is seen as greater than the robots on the ship that have colors and are kind of kooky, as we kind of talked about, are kind of seen as the middle class, as Wally is seen as the working class. As he's down below, all he does is work. He lives in a shed with his things. He doesn't get cared for like the robots do on the ship. And even the people are upper class. Though the people in the film shift through the class structure. They start off as upper class and are treated like kings and queens by the robots, but are back at the end of the film, are drawn back to the working class, as they are then forced, after returning to Earth, spoiler alert, and quite literally have to work to rebuild Earth. I spoke about this in the beginning of the lecture, the slideshow, but the film kind of very mimically embodying the essence of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Otto, which is seen here, that was just the autopilot robot, is highly modeled after Hal. And even Eve, the robot, being highly modeled after the pods that the astronauts sleep in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Human reliance, in terms of technology, the humans have integrated their entire life, and have adapted their entire life and to be tailored to technology, being surrounded by technology, that even their physical form has changed because of technology. Humans are seen throughout the film starting off as thinner and fit, as opposed to the lazy, just never getting out of their seat because everything works for them. Humans even begin to lose their independence because of how much technology is influenced by their lives. Just being surrounded so much by the technology on the spaceship has influenced how they live, how they view life, how they literally view the world around them. Film kind of hints at how artificial intelligence controls human life, even through the villain in the film, autopilot, having control over the actual pilot of the ship, who almost doesn't really do anything but read the news through the intercom, while Otto takes care of everything else. It's not until later in the film where the pilot begins to become curious and wants to expand his knowledge, that he starts to break away from that hole that he's in, that really allows him to expand it. And the computer, onboard computer, doesn't like that and sees that as a threat, just like 2001: A Space Odyssey. The film pushes the balance of independence and technology and really shows what the extremes are, even though it's unrealistic, highly unrealistic actually. But it's just a warning of what could happen to an extent if we let technology really take over our lives and not be aware of what is happening around us. Now, Pixar's always been known to have speculatively have a cohesive universe that flows intertwiningly with each other. Even if that is assumed through the many Easter eggs of each film throughout every Pixar movie and how those are connected. It's a fun little theory that it's kind of fun to speculate and look at. But even if it is speculation, the films do a really good job of maintaining Pixar's past, especially with this film specifically being so far in the future. We see the famous Pizza Planet truck from Pixar's very first film, Toy Story, which is almost seen in, if I'm not mistaken, in every single Pixar movie, kind of hinting at how each film is intertwined. In terms of canon within the world of WALL-E, specifically, I was able to find short films created outside of the movie, which can be found on Disney Plus and online on YouTube, and on the DVDs as well, that show the life of other characters within the movie, kind of living their day-to-day life, just kind of funny little vignettes that are contained within the WALL-E universe, in the WALL-E world. So through all these different short films, Pixar's WALL-E shorts maintain the canon because they don't go outside of what was already established within the feature film. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this and listen to this. I hope you had as much fun hearing about this film as much as I did researching all these different things and kind of expanding my knowledge about WALL-E. This was a fun assignment. I really appreciated it. And this was something different, which I really liked doing. I enjoy film. I enjoy animation specifically. I love Pixar. So this was a blast to be able to dive into. And I'm glad you were able to share that with me. Thank you so much for taking the time. Until next time.